Emily Bishop, and this is my story. So when I was a freshman in high school, I essentially lost my life to Christ, and I was involved with a competitive sport and just was feeling convicted that that's not where I needed to be, just based on how my relationship with God was going and the direction my life was taking and the friends I was hanging out with. And so after a youth retreat, I felt convicted to make a change, and I came home and promptly just quit competitive cheerleading and started slowly separating myself from these friends. Fast forwarding to my sophomore year then, I slowly began having just kind of gloomy thoughts and insecurities, and that just spiraled into depression and clinical depression, where I was having suicidal thoughts, and I also had obsessive compulsive disorder at the same time. But in that time, I just clung to the Lord. I knew that that suicide in the end wouldn't be the answer, and so I just prayed and sought the Lord, and I didn't, like I said, have friends, and so He really was my friend and my anchor in that time. So later that year, I had, discovered something in my neck, but I just thought it was normal, I guess. And then during my senior year, it manifested as a large lump on the side of my neck. One morning I just woke up and it was the size of half of an orange just stuck there. So I didn't know, what it was or what was going on, and just through a series of appointments and tests, we found out that it was large cell B-cell lymphoma, which is cancer, and I was like, okay, no problem. They put me on like a 4-month treatment for chemotherapy, and then after that it didn't dissolve or go away, and so I actually had 2 masses. One was in my neck, and then another one was basically, it's an empty cove in the center of your chest called the mediastinum, and it was nestled in there. Of course, you're asking those hard questions. Like, I remember one time driving in the car asking my sister, like, this isn't going to be the end, right? I mean, God wouldn't allow that. And she just said, I don't know. I can't tell you. So just coming to terms with, just knowing is this, the end of the road for me, but just still trusting God and His faithfulness in my life, knowing that no matter what, that I would serve Him because I had seen His goodness. And so at the beginning of all of that, I made a decision, and I said, God, I don't care what happens. I don't know the result, but I'm going to worship You. And that's what I did. I just made up my mind. And the cool thing is that I had so much joy in that season, and it was completely opposite from having depression. It was like God had totally healed me and confirmed that through cancer, because it's like, how does a senior in high school lose all their hair and have a big smile on their face? It can only be God. It's joy. So anyway, kind of fast forwarding, basically the cancer was extremely stubborn, and my doctor was consulting other doctors. He didn't really know how to come at this, and so I went through chemo and radiation and eventually a stem cell transplant, and lots of prayer, and that's, God used that and the doctors and prayer and people in my life, and He did heal me in 2009.
Is God worth all of that? That's it. That's something that's hard to do, to worship him in the middle of that. Is He worth it? And how have you answered that question?
Yeah, so I think that's a very loaded question.
Yes.
Because, it deals with the problem of pain. How can a good and a sovereign, all-powerful God coexist with my pain. Jesus addresses this head on with his disciples, and he says, "Who do you say that I am?" And as we know, Peter says, "Oh, the Son of God, of course." It's like the Sunday school answer, not a hard one, because he had seen the miracles and the authority and the power of Jesus. But then Jesus challenges his misconceptions about him and starts talking about where he's headed, which is the cross. And Peter says, "Oh, no. Kings don't go to the cross. Saviors don't go to the cross. The Son of God doesn't go to the cross. We don't suffer. Christians don't suffer, right?" And so I think Jesus is really asking them, who am I to you? Do you trust me? Can you hold both in your hands? Suffering and sovereignty. And I think everyone really has to come to terms with that question. Looking back, I am so glad I didn't quit with depression. I'm so glad I didn't take my life, because it's amazing. It's amazing what God has done. And if I would have cut it short, I would have never seen any of this. And even with having cancer, and they said I wouldn't be able to have children, and here we go.
Yeah.
So just, it's so cool to see yourself on the other side. And for those of you people who might be young and might just be in this tiny scope of eternity and they can't see the big picture, I can say now as an adult, looking back on my high school experience, that if a youth just continues to be faithful and continues to follow God, they will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. They will see the fruit of faithfulness. They will see how all their trials are working together for their good, because ultimately God is good, and the cross is not the end. The cross is just a pit stop on the way to life.